I'm at Digital Film Technology with Simon. Now, a big part of going digital is the fact that we still have a lot of film that people have archived over the years, and it still has a lot of value. And we must not forget that, and we must bring it forward with our transition to digital. Now, Simon here from Digital Film Laboratories has a very evolved and quality-based solution for that. And so I just wanted to bring this to the attention of my viewers and the community in general, because I want to remind them about this and also bring them up to date with the fact that we can really bring these old films forward at a quality which is greater than you could possibly imagine. And this WetGate scanner is a big solution to that. And I wanted to let Simon sort of explain to us how it achieves the nearly magical effects on the older or scratched films. Can you go into that part of how the the scanner does its magic, please?
Sure. So the important thing about this scanning technology is really about the ability to capture film and convert it into data for future generations.
That's right.
Typically, scanner technology has evolved from telecines, which were regarded as the panacea for linear translation for commercials and for feature film, and it would be a process of putting the film on, color grading, and delivering a video format. In the generation that we're dealing with now, obviously film is largely obsolete, and what we're having to effectively manage now is a legacy. So we've got over 100 years worth of content dotted around various archives all over the world and in various states of repair and condition. And what you need to do is have a technology that allows you to digitally clone that material and in a way maintain the integrity of it.
That's right.
So that you have choices at the scanner stage to decide whether you just want to capture the film warts and all, so with all the dust and scratch and issues attached to it, and then fix those problems downstream, or make key decisions on the scanner technology itself before you start the delivery process. And the advantages of having the ability to fix these issues at the scanner stage is obviously a time and cost relationship. So if you can fix dust and scratches through infrared scanning or through wet gating technology, such as is being demonstrated on the machine here, then if you can do it at the scanner, you get a better quality result, and also you're not having to think about those issues downstream and the cost implications. So that's not to say that the scanner can't offer those alternatives, because we both do infrared scanning at the initial stage, and you have choices at the scanning stage as to whether or not you process that infrared scanning matte, which is captured at the same time as the RGB scan, either internally, or whether you pass it downstream and then process it using third-party software. Clearly, the easiest way to achieve a good result is to try and find the right solution at the scanning stage, and then your deliverable is much faster as a consequence.
That's right. So what I hear from you here is that if the data is there and you can retrieve it, it's worth spending the extra effort in doing so, because also that keeps true to the actual intent of you're not I know you use special technologies to fill in the data that gets scratched or is missing, but it's really the best way actually is to pick up that data if you can.
Yeah, I think the fundamentals of what you're dealing with is an analog medium intrinsically in its own right. And if you can apply technologies at the scanning phase, which is a true representation of that material, then you get a result that doesn't have any artifacts in it. And the key element in this is when you're cloning material for the purposes of archival, you need to maintain the integrity of the original material as much as possible. We've got lots of digital processing that we can apply, spatial and recursive algorithms that we can use to fix various elements for dust and scratch processing.
That's right.
And we can do that all in real time within the scanner as well. So, you've got choices, but at the end it depends on ultimately the level of quality that you're trying to get to. Now, Digital Film Technology is very proud of the fact that we produce the best scanner on the market for cloning and providing that material in the best possible condition for future generations. The problems come when you start to interfere with the scan itself and you start to apply a range of different processes, because each one of those can potentially impact the final quality of the material. not necessarily that obvious, but when you start to look at it in detail later on, you might find that you've added some form of artifacts which you don't necessarily want. And that's particularly important for long-term historical archives. Ability, as we have with Scanity HDR, to do an analog organic wetted transfer allows the process of just filling in the gaps, the scratches within the surface imperfections of the film during the scanning phase. And because the fluid that's used is effectively the same refractive index of the film itself, you end up with an almost perfect translation of the material, but it's done in an organic way rather than in a digital way.
Yes.
So once it's literally the liquid's gone into the scratches, it's scanned, and what you're seeing is a clean, finished image, and at that point it's then digitally converted into either a DPX or a TIFF file. Or if you want to, as part of the process, we can do a parallel delivery at the same time. So you could have a proxy H.264 and a 2K or 4K DPX
So
file.
This is all in real time?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but I must say, people watching this, you should go to the website and have a look at some of the example scans. Like looking at magic at something that is not viewable, passing through the WetGate, and looks like it's an answer print sort of
Great.
solution.
In fact, we've got a demonstration on the monitor next to us, which perhaps you could cut to later,
Yep.
which shows you a clip translation between wet and dry, side by side, so you can effectively see immediately the organic process of that correction. Rather than doing it digitally, you have the ability to do it in a way that's both real-time and more natural to the material itself. That's not to say that you can't use an infrared strategy for certain types of materials. It just depends on the level of the damage itself. Now, typically, if the material is quite lightly scratched, you might want to think about an infrared pass and do
So, just on this point, this is really much the right tool for the right job.
correct.
You can basically, depending if the film is very old, to the whole plethora of the film out there, you've got the best solution to approach to that situation and problem. That's what I'm hearing from you, and that's
Yeah, and I think that the main issue that you have with digital processing is to do with the types of films that you might use and the sorts of damage that might be on them. So, for example, black and white materials might well be very badly scratched, but you cannot use an infrared pass on them because they've got quite a lot of silver content in them, so that you don't get the proper map in that scanning process. So, consequently, you can't use an infrared scan to fix digitally downstream for black and white materials. So having a WetGate solution doesn't care whether it's black and white or color, it will fill the gaps in regardless, and you get a fix for it.
That's the right tool for the right job. Now,
exactly.
Just before we finish up, just tell us who is this product for? Is it for who buys this type of product?
Well, predominantly Digital Film Technology sells this product into large government archives around the world. That's effectively who we are. Yeah. So, an example might be the Library and Archives of Canada, it might be the Slovak Film Institute, it might be the BFI, there's a whole range of different large government or funded organizations that have a mountain of archive film which they recognize needs to be converted into a digital domain or digital format. And I think that the ability of Scanity, which is very nice, is it has uniquely the capability of delivering high-speed, real-time 2K and 4K scans into a server directly that you can then decide what you want to do with later. So you're effectively taking your history from damaged and old and decaying films, and you're converting it into a digital format for future generations.
And bringing it into the future, because film projectors are becoming sparser and sparser as time goes on, and the ability to watch that content will become harder and harder. So we really do need, it is a extremely important effort that we bring some of the history. I know that Australian Film and Sound Archive, I think, has one of these.
Yeah, they do indeed. Yeah.
And Australia is very proud of our history, although it's not very long. The film that we do have of it the government's really keen to bring it forward, so we have it there to look at in the future and know where we came from as a nation, and that's where I think a lot of this is driven.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, at the end of the day, film doesn't last forever. It has a very good shelf life. Typically, film started its life in the late 1800s, so 1890, around that kind of period, and has evolved over the last 120 years or so. But unfortunately, it's in various stages of decay. And some of it's okay as long as it's stored correctly and it's got the right atmosphere and it's the right humidity. All of those conditions help to maintain the longevity of the material, but fundamentally it's not an indefinite issue. So at some point all of this material has to be looked at and ingested and managed for future generations, and really that's what Scanity is about.
Anyway, thank you very much, Simon from Digital Film Technology. This is James Gardner at NAB 2015. Bye for now.